Hello everybody. In this video I'm going over something that I think you guys will really enjoy, and I'm testing out this mic again. It's the one I use for my podcast. If you guys haven't heard my podcast yet, the link will be in the description, and you guys can tell me what you think about that, and if you'd like to hear more podcasts in the future. If not, just let me know. I'm actually going to use some clips from some podcasts to make a big video that I'm probably going to release. I have done. Probably going to release on Christmas or next week. I don't know yet. It'll probably be the 8K special, even though it's nothing too major. But I'm just testing this mic out. I know for that video, like, I didn't use it well, so you guys heard heavy breathing. So I'm still figuring out the tweaks, I guess. So if you guys hear heavy breathing or something, I'm so sorry. I'm still working on this. But for this video today, we're gonna discuss my tier list for Monsterverse fights so far as of December 13th, 2019, and as of when I'm recording this. And obviously this does not count GVK, Godzilla vs. Kong. It will also not count things such as human versus Titan fights, such as the Golden Gate Bridge scene 2014 or something. This is specifically Titan fights. This will also not count any comic book fights that we've gotten at all. I know there's a few of them, like Shin, Muto Prime, the Mother Longlegs Kong fights. Those fights I'm not counting in this video. Maybe in a future video I'll count those, but this one is specifically going to be the film fights we've gotten. And I'm not including any outside source other than the movie, so I'm not including, although it's not like I'm going in depth with them, I'm not including stuff such as novelizations and stuff. Simply just going to be a top tier list, and I'll go start with my least favorite, and we're going to work our way up to my favorite fight in the Monsterverse. So, let's begin, shall we? Alright, so my least favorite fight to begin with has to go to the 2014 airport fight, or Godzilla versus the male Muto, or the Hawk Muto. I think it's pretty safe to assume that this is everyone's least favorite Monsterverse fight, and it's pretty obvious why. We only got like a few glimpses of it off a TV from a shaky cam with someone's phone thing in the film. That's how it's presented, at least. I know Jane or Padilla, one of my good buddies, he ended up finding a version of it that was made for the film that's actually the TV screen, so it's a lot more clear and stuff. But even then, it's just a few cuts in between the fight, and I mean, to me personally, really, it's not that enjoyable, and there's nothing to it, and it's a lot like the next fight on our list. The next fight, from least favorite to favorite, has to go to Rodan versus King Ghidorah, Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019. Personally, this fight was more disappointing than anything. Like, I was kind of comparing it to the airport fight because it's split off into like 3 different shots. There's a shot of them connecting real quick, and then you don't see it for a while, then you see them sort of fighting again. In a semi-long shot, it goes away again. Then it comes back simply to Ghidorah doing this really cool execution move where he not that he kills Rodan, but like he holds 2 of Rodan's wings and uses his middle head to shock Rodan, knock him out, and put him in the water and get him out of the fight. But I'm just going to put it above the airport fight just because obviously we see a bit more of it and it's a bit more enjoyable, you know? Because there's actually some context. We actually do get to see it close up, not just from some TV, from some phone quality. So there's more stuff to it than the airport fight. But for the next fight after that has to go to the underwater Mexico fight in Godzilla King of the Monsters. This fight, to me, I think is barely above the Rodan fight, and that's just because of some of the context stuff to it. Going into it too, you know, since this is an opinionated list, this film gave me a lot of GMK vibes when this fight happened. Just how Godzilla overpowers Ghidorah and such, and some of the shots in this fight are really cool. Although we don't really get to go underwater and explore the fight or anything, which kind of sucks. We do get to see a lot more of it than we see Godzilla vs. Rodan, granted. Kind of blurry. But like we see fight starts with Ghidorah heading towards the plane, and out of nowhere Godzilla grabs Ghidorah, pulls him in the water. They go underwater for a second, then Ghidorah tries to get out. Godzilla pulls him back in, and then you see him underwater fighting. You see Ghidorah and them struggling, and Godzilla's just whooping him. And we do get some underwater shots of Godzilla, just like there's blood. Godzilla ripping apart Ghidorah, and it gets all the way to the point where Godzilla literally rips off Kevin. He rips off Ghidorah's left head, and this fight lasts for, I believe, like, if we're talking about just the footage of the monsters, I believe this fight lasts for about like 30 seconds, maybe 50, and that's a lot more than the two previous fights. And the fight doesn't have to be long to be enjoyable, you know, but it's just in this case, you know, the other two fights literally had like 2 shots, while this one I think was a little bit better drug out and paced and such, and I thought it was a lot more enjoyable. Like I said, although we didn't get much of it, and then it kind of had the kind of stuck-in ending of the Oxygen Destroyer kind of being used, which I was not really a big fan of, but, you know, that's okay. But yeah, that's how that whole fight played out. So, you guys might disagree with me already on having this fight above Rodan, but as of right now, in my personal opinion, I would say it was more fun in theaters watching Godzilla just come out of nowhere, sneak attack Ghidorah, and then start killing him underwater and brutally rip his head off stuff. It's just the ending fight's kind of poopy too. But this opens up for the next fight in the Monsterverse, which would have to go to Kong versus the 2 skull crawlers. In case you don't remember, there was a fight which was really shown in the trailers a lot, where Kong fights these 2 little skull crawlers. And this goes above the rest of the fights because this is the most clear fight, the best film, the one we see the most. Kong, for these creatures not being anywhere near the size of the Titans and the Godzilla films, they look huge. It's shot perfectly. Kong's getting ready to fight one skullcrawler that killed one of the big buffalo things, I believe, and eating him. And there's a skullcrawler sneaking up behind him. You see it. And we get this really long, like, single take shot of Kong fighting both the skullcrawlers at the same time. And although it's a quick scene, it's such a cool scene. It really makes Kong look badass as he fights these two at the same time, grabbing them both by the neck, slamming them, stomping their heads in and stuff. And I think it's a really cool shot fight, very clear. And personally, I think it's actually, for a quick scene, really enjoyable. I remember seeing it in theaters. This was a really enjoyable scene to watch. Although we did see quite a bit of it in the trailers, it was still such a great scene to watch first time. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that scene. And then for the next scene up, this one has to go to the battle in Boston, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. I do not count the Burning Godzilla segment of this fight. I count that fight separately, just so you know. This exclusively includes Supercharged Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. For my context, by the way, I'm sure some people count the Burning Godzilla fight in there, but this is to me, I'm gonna separate this fights. But this, anyways, this is here we see Supercharged Godzilla fight King Ghidorah, and Mothra and Rodan fight. And while this is such a cool concept, one that we didn't see in a lot of the Toho movies, and it has some really cool highlights, such as Ghidorah body slamming Godzilla, Godzilla blasting his atomic breath, and Mothra sticking him to a building, Mothra using her stinger, Godzilla falling from like the stratosphere and stuff, and Mothra dying. There's some really cool segments to this whole scene, but it really gets broken down by stuff such as like the humans, because the humans make up most of this fight. And most of the time, they're not even doing anything that involves a fight. They're just having their human story that no one really cared about, where they're looking for Millie Bobby Brown the whole time. And basically, the only time we get to see the monsters is when the highlights. In the highlights, and when we do get to see monsters, it always looks really cool. Although it could have been shot a little bit better at some points, and some of the effects could have been a little bit better. It suffers from certain things, such as like the cutaways that have nothing to do with the fight and don't help it, and they're just long drawn out. A lot of the shots aren't drawn out very long until towards the end after they find Millie. That's when a lot of these shots are drawn out. And I was kind of let down by it. I still think it was still an enjoyable fight, but I don't think it's the best. And another reason I split it from Burning Godzilla is because it has such a long, like, cut from the fight in between time for basically Godzilla and Ghidorah to be completely recharged and basically like a whole nother fight. So that's why I'm separating those two. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the battle in Boston, on why I placed it here. Although take it or leave it, you know, that's just my opinion. Next up would be Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Antarctica, Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019. This battle, while it's not the best, I still did really enjoy it for the most part, especially the first time I saw it. It kind of did suffer from some of the same things the Boston fight, but the atmosphere of like Antarctica is so cool. In fact, snowy weather and stuff is something that I think is a really unique thing. That the only other kaiju film that I know of that really uses it is Gamera, Attack of Legion, and that's only for like the intro too. It's really cool how they use this setting. You know, it's something I've even implemented into my book I've been writing and stuff. And snow, it's such a cool setting. It's shot pretty cool. I think this is one of the best shot fights of the film. And it's not a long one, but at least the shots are more drawn out. We get a lot of character here, especially the build-up leading into it, where they're setting each other up, they're trying to intimidate each other. And there's cool scenes such as Ghidorah, when we can see him use his lightning bolts, and Godzilla having a similar charge up to 2014 where he slams his tail, and one by one then we can see a more Toho-esque beam, and Ghidorah using his triple beams and knocking Godzilla into the pit just for the military to save the humans, and Godzilla come out and Ghidorah to flee. But personally, from an enjoyment standpoint, I think the Antarctica battle, to some extent, if we're talking about from like the way it was made, is a lot better than Battle in Boston, because it's a really close to Battle in Boston. If I was going to talk about my enjoyment value, you know, I could say like, oh my god, I love the highlights more in the Battle in Boston. But the problem is that I just think this fight flowed a lot smoother. And I thought it was a lot enjoyable the way they shot it and made it and stuff. And other than that, you know, that's the only reason I have it above Battle in Boston. It's just the way it was paced and the way it was shot and stuff. I thought it was better, although it didn't have as good as highlights as Battle in Boston. It just flowed a lot better, and the monsters weren't completely in the background the whole time. Next up, and I believe it's number 3, this has to go to Burning Godzilla 2019 versus King Ghidorah, Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019. And yeah, like I said, I count it separate, but to me this is probably the best fight in the film. It's like never cuts away at all. It's a fluent scene. It lasts for like a minute 30 seconds or something like that, and it's still really well. Godzilla walks up, shoots it, roars. Ghidorah turns around, not completely sure, never seen anything like it. Godzilla uses his nuclear pulse in such a great setup shot. Ghidorah starts melting away, tries to protect himself. It does nothing. Godzilla just looks massive, completely destroys Ghidorah, and ends up basically starts eating him, and then blows him on top of his breath. And it's such a cool scene. Probably one of the best scenes from King of the Monsters. And I thought it was probably one of the most enjoyable and well-made fights in the film. Not just a highlight reel or anything. It was a fluent, drawn-out fight with no cutaways, just the monsters going at it 1v1. And that's something I really enjoyed about this fight. And I personally, I think this is probably the best fight in the film in terms of the way it was shot and everything else went to it. Godzilla looked massive. He was scary in this shot. Powerful. I think a lot of people might know what my number 1 is, but I'm about to surprise you guys, because number 2 has to go to Godzilla vs. the Mutos, Godzilla 2014. It might shock a lot of you guys. I know I really love 2014. It's my favorite Monsterverse movie so far. But I mean, like, personally, I think this fight's so enjoyable. It has long, drawn-out shots of the Mutos and stuff fighting like animals, brutal, raw shots. I even like resaw it the other day. Great shots, great filming. The monsters move slowly. They feel huge. They hit heavy. There's blood. They're fighting. They're biting. They're clawing. Godzilla just some of the most iconic shots in the whole franchise, like his first time he used atomic breath, kiss of death, smacks the male Muto. You watch him as he learns and has character, as he studies Muto stuff, and the cutaways and stuff. The humans actually have a big time effect on the final battle, which a lot of people can say about King of the Monsters too. But I mean, like, everything they do during the final battle affects the final battle, unlike King of the Monsters, where most of the stuff they do has nothing to do with the final battle, and then they activate the Orca. This, the whole time, they're getting the nuke, which draws the female Muto away after Ford Brody blows up the nest, and it all lines up perfectly, and then they distract her while Godzilla gets time to recover. Overall, I think this is the best drawn out fight, especially in the Godzilla films, and I do think this is really great. It lacks a bit from the coloration, like it's not very bright, and a lot of the versions you get, it's too dark to even see. However, you get some versions like I have, and maybe adjust your TV some for some of you people, or you get like a big 4K TV, or you even watch it on like some of the TV stations that do their own like restoration of it or something. It looks great. The effects are amazing, the score is amazing, every shot's amazing of it, and it's such a great, brutal fight, and I love it. But that leads into number one for me, and at this point, looking at my thing, I don't think I missed a single fight. Number one has to go to Kong versus the giant one, the big one, the Alpha Skullcrawler. To me, best fight in the Monsterverse. It starts out with like Kong being really hurt and getting knocked over and stuff at night. Comes day, and it's such a brutal fight. And like the humans, there's not that many cutaways and stuff. And you know, like I know I keep saying stuff about cutaways and stuff, and people can say 2014, but like honestly, cutaways aren't usually the big issue unless they truly take away from the enjoyment. To me, and in my opinion, it's also do. Like the humans and stuff, they have a big role in the fight. There's not that many of them, and the fight's so amazing. The effects are amazing. It's so clear. It's in the daytime without rain or anything. It starts out amazing just with Kong slamming the rock on the Skullcrawler wrapping his tail and doing all these weird sorts of things that like I don't recall any monster really doing like Godzilla or anything. The only thing I can think closest is like the snake in the Kong, the 70s Kong, that wraps himself around Kong. But like, there's so many cool things in this fight. Kong really feels human. The shot where he uses a tree and turns into like a bat. The humans saving Kong with like flare guns and like the big guns on the ship. Kong's coming back and saving them with learning how to use like the propeller from the boat as a weapon. And honestly, it's a fight I go back and watch a lot too without even watching the movie. It's one of those fights that I get on YouTube and just pull up because it's such a cool fight. When he takes the propeller, he rips open the Skullcrawler's throat, and you think Skullcrawler's dead, but he comes back and he literally rips its guts out and stuff. And it's such a cool scene. And honestly, I really appreciate it. And the people who wrote that, choreographed that, all the motion capture artists and everything, it's such a good job. Such an amazing fight, and it's really it has to be for a close battle, man, mind you. Just because of lighting and stuff, and more of the context and stuff, I'm going to give this one to Kong Skull Island's final battle, just because it allows, and it really shows how Kong nearly dies, but he's protecting the whole Earth, similar to how Godzilla protects the Earth by saving them from the Mutos. But it's still such a cool thing, especially since these monsters naturally look like they can move a lot quicker in the way they do, and not as slow and bulky, which is still great about 2014. But it works so well here with the fact that they kind of move quick and stuff. And honestly, I don't know what else to say. That's just my opinion on the tier list. What's your guys' tier list based off mine? Do you guys agree with my list? Do you disagree? How would you write my list? How would you write your own list? What did you guys think of each fight? Please let me know down in the comments below. Just notice my opinion. Opinions do change. Like I said, a lot of these fights are really tight on the ropes. Like, they're really close to each other. And any second, you know, any of them can switch, you know. Like, tomorrow I could wake up and be like, man, you know, I should have put Godzilla first, the underwater battle, and then the Rodan battle. But how my list is said, as of recording this video, is my current thoughts. And we just have to wait till GVK comes out to see if any thing out, how I can place the other ones, if you guys like to see that. So I really hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please, as always, share, like, subscribe. As always, thank you for watching once again. Peace.